Morning everyone, my name's Jono. Welcome to the channel, or welcome back if you've been before, and if you have, I really thank you. It's been a very frustrating few weeks. My subscriber numbers have been hovering just below 500, and I'm really keen to get to 500 to get a community tab going on the channel, but that's YouTube for you. I just have to be patient. Part two this time in our series about introducing you to Lightroom, and in particular Lightroom Classic. So let's waste no more time and jump straight in. So here we are in the main screen of Lightroom. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new catalog, just so we're starting fresh, but also that I can show you how that works. So up to File, New, and then New Catalog. Now normally Lightroom places a new catalog automatically in the Pictures directory on Windows, but I'm going to move mine into my Documents directory, just purely that's where I keep things, into Lightroom Catalogs, and then I'm going to name a new folder Temp and create the catalog in there. And there we go. Lightroom will now close itself and reopen with the new catalog. And you'll notice that it's kind of a blank template. Any customizations I made in other catalogs have now disappeared. We're back to default settings. Next thing we need to do is import some images. I've chosen some already that we can just use just to demonstrate. So we need to click this import button down the left-hand corner here. And this presents us with the import screen where we can make some choices about how the images are going to be imported. At the top here we have some choices about how the images are actually going to be stored. Over on the left hand side we've got our source, where we actually choose where these images are that we're going to be importing, where they exist currently. And on the right hand side here we have got some choices to make on regards to how the files will be handled once they're actually imported. Files are stored on my desktop in a folder called Temp, so let's locate those. Here they are. You'll see there is a tick box here to include subfolders if that was relevant, to obviously take images from a folder and all the ones below it. And here are my three images, and as you can see I can select or deselect the ones I wish to import depending on the size of the import that you're doing. At the top here then we have some choices regarding what we're going to do with these images. I'm going to skip over DNG for now. We'll look at that in a future episode. But I think if we look at copy, which will basically leave a copy of those images where they are in the temp folder, but copy to the same location as my catalog. Move then does what it says. It moves the images from the temp folder into the folder where the catalog is stored. And then finally, we've got the option to add. So that basically doesn't do any copying or moving. It leaves the images exactly where they are in this temp folder, but the catalog then references to that folder. So really the choice is up to you how you want to lay out your catalog. So over here we have an option for previews. I wouldn't worry about this section too much. Previews, if you think of them a bit like cache, it's just how the cache is built, and you only really need to worry about it if you're very short of disk space. So I'm just going to skip over it for now on this tutorial. Next we have, do we add these images automatically to a collection? I mentioned collections briefly in my last tutorial. It's just a way of subdividing your catalog into topics or themes. And do you want to add these images to a catalog upon import, or do you want to wait once they're imported and move them at that point? The next two options relate to some presets that we can apply on import. So the first one are development options. In other words, a predefined list of adjustments that we can make to an image and apply it automatically on import. Never needed to do that in my life, and I don't really need to see why you should, but there's an option here for you anyway. And the next one then is some presets that you can build around applying metadata to an image. You can see I have one built around copyright if it's an image I'm going to be publishing to the web, etc. A box then for adding keywords, which I mentioned in my previous tutorial, and this allows us to add a keyword upon import. So I'm just going to put kayaking in here. It won't overwrite any other keywords that already exist in the image, but it will just append them upon import. Once I'm happy with my choices, then I can press the import button here down in the bottom right, and the import will begin. There we go. Obviously it will take a lot longer if you've got lots of images to import. Nice and quick just for my 3 images. On the right hand side here then you can see that my keyword has been applied, that it hasn't overwritten the keywords that already existed on these images. So now we're ready to have a look at perhaps making some minor adjustments to them, but that will be a topic for episode 3. In the meantime, what we need to do is assume that we've made any adjustments we want to, and we now want to export these images out of the catalog ready for publishing or whatever we're going to be doing with them. So let's take a look at that. First thing we're going to do is decide what we actually want to export. Single images, we can simply right click and then choose export from the menu. And we can obviously make our choices from there. Multiple images, just like within normal Windows Explorer, we can either select individuals, or if we hold down Control and click, we can select multiple images. And then we've got an option down here in the bottom left to export from there. Clicking export then gives us this dialog whereby we can actually make quite a few different choices about how the export's going to go. So the first thing we're going to do is choose where to export to. A hard drive or another part of the hard drive we're on, automatically attached to an email, burned to a CD or DVD, etc. So I'm going to stick with hard drive for now. Whereabouts are we going to put the export? Okay, so by default we've got options like desktop, my documents, etc. Obviously we can choose a specific folder, and then we can actually we can choose the folder that we actually are going to export to. I'm going to just leave it as desktop for now, so I'm just going to remove that and just select this, and we'll ignore the subfolder where we imported from. I'm just going to choose the plain desktop. There's various choices about what to do if there are duplicate file names, etc. And indeed, next options down, we can choose how to rename the file if we want to, or leave it or whatever the file was called previously, etc., etc. I don't use video in Lightroom, but there are options for video, and there's some video export options there, but I'm just going to skip over it. File settings then, so what type of image are we going to export to? And we've got a few different choices, the quality of the image, etc., etc. Here we have the option if we wish to resize the image, if we so see fit, change the resolution from our existing image. We've got a few different options in terms of its height and width, or just adjusting the long edge and the short edge being resized to match, etc., etc. I'm going to just leave that off, so it'll actually export the same size image as is stored in our catalog currently. We've got a few more options I'm just going to breeze over because they're not too important. One that's worth mentioning is watermark. By clicking this, it'll add a water clock to the image, which has to be pre-configured. You can do a simple copyright, but if you want a sort of more stylized image like your logo or something like that as a watermark, then you'll need to pre-configure it first. So I'll look at that on a future video. Just turn that off for now, but I'll go ahead and export those. It won't take long because there's only 3 images, but you'll see if I just open up the desktop here, there's that one and these 2 images here. Unfortunately, I didn't rename them, did I? And there they are. It's worth pointing out that until you actually do export, any edits that you've made to the image are not stored in the image. Lightroom is non-volatile. It doesn't make any changes until you do the export. So although I could turn this into a black and white image and that's how it'll appear within Lightroom, if you were to look at the image on your disk, it will still be in its original format. But once you export it, the changes are written to the exported version. So there you go. Like I say, bit of an overview, but I'm hoping that it at least gets you interested in the software, gets you moving for you to move on and explore a little further on your own. Obviously, we've got more parts to come, and I'll go into more detail in some of those. But until then, thank you very much for all your support. I'll see you again soon.